Hey guys, it's Dom from Mobile Dom. I am back with the bane of my existence, the review of the Monoprice Mini Delta. This will be broken up into a few segments. It is what is the Delta, what is the Mini Delta, as in what is a Delta, the prints I've made on the printer, and the good and the bads. And one of those sections is going to be a lot longer than the other. So, starting off, what is the Mini Delta? The Mini Delta is a Delta-style printer from Malian Systems, rebranded by Monoprice. It has a 110 diameter by 120mm tall build volume. It has a very small colour screen up front with 3 navigation buttons, a micro USB for connecting to a computer, a micro SD card for putting your prints on, 12-volt barrel jack around this side. On the back is a teeny tiny spool holder. On the right side of the printer, if you're facing the front, is the extruder, and on the top is a handle. This machine This machine is very small and very light. This is me holding it with my thumb. I probably should have removed that spool. So being a Delta printer, it doesn't have discrete motors for the X, Y and Z axis. All the axes move in tandem to get that the Delta dance. That very smooth, very silky, very fast movement. And this does that really, really well. This printer is fast. It, when compared to the Prima Creator P120, which is based off the Monoprice Monoprice Maker Select Mini, either a similar style printer that is Cartesian. If I had the same print, so say a Benchy, printing at 50mm per second on both of them, this would finish first, because Delta printers can accelerate and decelerate much quicker with less jerk, so the print result doesn't suffer as much, which is really. Monoprice claim the hot end can get to 260 degrees. They also say that you could print ABS on this thing. You definitely can't. The print bed is just not powerful enough to get up to the temperatures needed for ABS. This is a PLA and flexibles machine, and if you're lucky, so I've got a couple of them here, if you're lucky you might be able to get some pretty good PETG prints out of them, but PETG will be the most technical material you'll be able to print on this. Do not think you'll be able to print nylon, do not think you'll be able to print ABS, you will not be printing polycarbonate hips, anything like that. It's modified PLAs and flexibles for the most part. And that's what all these are, and that's fine, but you need to know the limits. So, everything you see on this table was printed on the printer. Aside from this, this is a representation of the printer's build volume. I printed this on my bigger printer just because I needed, well, this was printing something else. So this is a 110mm diameter, 120mm tall cylinder. This is, if what you want can fit in this, it can be printed on the printer. So that is what this is. So you can see just how small the build volume of this printer is. That is really small. That's really small. But that doesn't mean you can't print somewhat useful things. So I've done a couple of vases like I usually do. This is the Twisted Vase Basic in, I believe this is Filamentum Wizard's Voodoo. So the way it's catching the light here with like greens and purples, this is almost certainly Wizard's Voodoo. These two are printed in Eri 1, yes, Eri 1, These are printed in Eri-1 Silk Silver. And this one in particular is so pretty. I think this is the prettiest version of this vase I have ever printed. And I've printed this vase a lot. And this is, without a shadow of a doubt, the nicest version of this vase I have ever printed. Partly because of the filament use. This silk silver it just looks like liquid metal. But also the consistency of the extrusion on the Mini Delta. It was top notch. Like, everything is where it should be. This is like pretty solid, and it's just a gorgeous little vase. This one is just weird and wacky, and it is not perfect. There are some missed layers, but again, because of all the facets and this shiny metallic silk silver filament, it just looks like a bit of a kaleidoscope, and like the inside is actually kind of sharp, but everyone that comes past and sees this thinks it's so cool. And again, if I take out the handful of dodgy layers, mostly the extrusion is really consistent and really nice. So yeah, good on that. What else? This is a bust of Joel Telling, the 3D printing nerd. I cannot remember who designed this model. I will try and put it on screen or in the description box below. This is printed in filamentive gold RPLA, and it came out great. So around the back it does say 3D printing nerd, and there was a lot of support around the back, so I'm still struggling to get some of the nubbins from that off, but like, you're gonna get tired of hearing me say it, but for the most part, the extrusion was really good. There's a couple of layers where it suffered, so up near his glasses, and again, put some B-roll in. But it looks really cool. If you don't get like too close, like you can see a tiny bit of ringing on the lettering. But the big issue for me is the base. So the Mini Delta comes with a Build Tactile type sticker. Mine broke the second print I ever tried to do on it. So I think when I was printing this, I was printing on masking tape, which is not ideal. But the auto level on the Mini Delta is also pretty rubbish. So the bottom of this model is just marred with the aftermath of a really poor first layer. Going on, here we have Captain Marvel, Brie Larson herself, and Michelle Pfeiffer's Catwoman. Both of these are printed in real filaments, shifting blue, PETG. This is before that filament got severely waterlogged, and honestly, these prints are gorgeous. I believe both of these are by Wexter. If not, this is Wexter and this is Photis Mint. Again, I'll put as much information in the description as I can. But yeah, consistent layers, consistent extrusion, nice detail. That's what I'm trying to get at. What else? Mini Batarang. This is Garrett Kearney from Chaos Cortec. This is his Arkham Knight Batarang, scaled down to 50 or 45%, and it was so small the pins wouldn't print properly, so I had to glue it open. But this is so cool. This is like a Batarang that I'd like to use. I've got a full-size one over there, and that thing is huge. So this is actually one of my favourite Batarangs. Next, we have some props from the anime Seven Deadly Sins. This is Meliodas' sword called Lost Vein. This is, again, I think 30%. It's a really big sword in the anime for a very small person, and this is not my best work. Partly this issues was the filament. but a lot of it was also me and the printer. This is, or was, going to be King's Spirit Spear Chastafoil, the tip of his spear. And again, you can only spend so much time sanding PLA before you realise the base print wasn't good enough to continue. And this one is the one I'm actually super happy with. This is Deanne's Gideon. Deanne is a giant, she's about 100 odd feet tall. This is her hammer. The hammer is about 130 odd feet tall. I love this little thing. So the person that modelled this to be a desk ornament, a desk toy. So this is actually the full size of the model. It was split into 5 pieces, so the handle is 2 and the top is 3 different pieces, which allows me to print all on the Mini Delta, and I love this little thing. And lastly, the Korean sword on the table. This goes to show what you can print on a small printer when the designer splits the model up appropriately. The blade is in 7 sections, the handle is in like 4, then there's the guard, all of it printed beautifully in this clear PLA. It's like solid, he says, and he nearly cracks it. This is like a gorgeous print, and I actually really like showing it off to people because it's one of the better things that this printer has made. And it just looks cool, like a clear sword, and it's not too long like some katanas are, and it's not too heavy, and it's not too obnoxious. It's just it's a pretty cool sword. Now I'm going to talk about the good parts of this printer before moving on to the bad parts. And unfortunately the good parts are a lot shorter of a list. So as I said, up front we have this colour screen with the 3 navigation buttons. It's a really nice screen, it's a really nice UI. It's a bit restrictive with what you can do mid-print, but it is really nice, really clear, really simple. And it's not touchscreen, it is navigated by those 3 buttons, so up, down, and enter, and then you use software to go back. The screen itself is almost its own serial interface, and one of the things it has on there is an ESP8266. You don't need to know what that is. Basically, this printer has Wi-Fi. When you turn it on, you use the app on a compatible phone, you can go in and connect this to the internet, and then on the home screen it will say an IP address. Go to your computer. So I think the one, it always rotates. I think at the moment for me this is 10.0.0.34. So if I go to my browser, type in 10.0.0 or 10.0.0.34, a little box will pop up saying, upload your G-code here. And you upload it, and it'll say, do you want to adjust the temperatures? And you just click print. If it wasn't so slow at uploading, which is partly due to the fact that it's 2.4 gigahertz only, it would be way more impressive. But it's like my new printer doesn't have that at all, so it's literally transferring a micro SD back and forth, and it's like I realised how much I utilise this even if it is so unbelievably slow. That's pretty cool. Next, the hot end. Whilst the hot end itself might be a hodgepodge of everything, the nozzles do appear to be E3D compatible. I know this because I bought some E3D brass nozzles, and that is what is in there now, and it just works. And lastly, safety. Asterisk. This does not use mains power. It uses an external power brick. It's 12 volts, 5 amps, and that's pretty good. You don't really want people messing with mains voltage, and yeah, that's pretty good. Now we need to talk about the not so good parts of this printer. And unfortunately, guys, I have notes. I have a book. I have had so many issues with this machine. So let's start with the obvious one. The extruder on the side is bright red. That is not the original extruder. Why is it not the original extruder? Because the original extruder exploded! Yay! The injection molded ABS extruder got fatigued, and the tension on the spring made it explode and fail mid-print, which was absolutely terrifying. As someone in the room, I thought someone had shot me or shot something in my room. You just like hear a ping and like broken plastic, and utterly terrifying. So I had to replace the extruder. And when I was replacing the extruder, I found out that the extruder motor doesn't have a flat on the motor shaft. So usually when you put a gear on a stepper motor, there is a flat spot on the drive shaft, so you can use a set screw to screw it down. This doesn't have that. It's a completely circular drive shaft. You just screw the set screw down on a curve, and I think the original one actually had a drop of super glue on it as well. Seems like a lot to go through to just not use a stepped shaft, but whatever. What else? So, my bed is completely, utterly warped. You could use it as a coaster, you could use it as a coaster for a cup of tea. It is absolutely bowed. So mine is helped a little bit by the fact that I have a Wham Bam flexible build surface on mine. I put some shims on the edges to try and raise the edges a bit, and I now have a magnetic bed. But this bed, the actual plate itself, is absolutely bent. Going along with that, there are 3 clips that hold the bed in place. They are 2 loose, like completely loose, like I should not be able to rattle the bed this much when they're all clamped in place. One of them arrived broken, and they just actually don't hold the bed down. One of the first things you're told to do in the group is to print off these new bed tensioners, which I didn't do because I didn't think you should have to. I kind of wish I would have listened to them. I've tried so many other things, but this is just a bad way of holding the bed down. Next up is the bed again, strangely enough. There is no manual leveling screws. This is all done by auto level, which in a way is good. Trying to manually level a delta is one of the 7 rings of hell. I'm sure of it. So underneath each of these points there is a little mechanical switch, a tact switch. So the nozzle goes down and presses down until it presses that switch. And then it gets the location of each of those switches and extrapolates a grid and says, okay, that should be flat, and tries to work it out. Except it's not flat. We know it's not flat. And then it's made worse by the fact that those bed clips are super loose. So the bed will actually physically lift up on the opposite end and shift before it actually hits the switch, making it even more unreliable. And you can't manually level the bed yourself and save it to EEPROM because you can't save it to EEPROM. This is a nightmare. You can't, getting a first layer that is so level is so hard. As I said, the reason I couldn't print this on this is because this was in use. It also physically wouldn't print this. It only has 2 bottom layers. This is so out, the 2 layers would have still shown the highs and the low spots. That's insane. Next thing, the thermistor unplugged itself mid-print. Yep. So all the hot end cables up here in the top corner all have quick disconnect plugs if you need to change the fan, the heater cartridge, the thermistor. So you're not having to thread it all the way down here into the base. Really cool, really neat idea, really love it. Except somehow the thermistor had gotten itself dislodged and came out mid-print. And I just happened to look at the screen when it said 543 degrees on the hot end. I didn't think that was right. But it didn't stop. And it was there for about like 15 seconds whilst I was looking at it and nothing happened. I don't know if I just caught it or it had been there for a while, but the fact that it hadn't triggered thermal protection was seriously upsetting to me. As a printer that is so often touted as being for the beginner, for the learner, for the kids, like, that's a big no-go to me. And lastly, again, is now that I'm at this point where I've had all these failures and I've had to change all these things, and I've had to adjust the tension in the belts with an Allen key and a guitar tuner app, where I've had to replace the extruder motor and the extruder itself, where I've had to change the E-steps on the printer and then save it in my G-code start script because I can't change it, save it to the EEPROM, because the printer makes prints that are 2% too small on purpose. All of that inconsistency is bad. And I'm at the point now where I say you've sacrificed too much of the experience to get this as plug and play, where you should be considering other printers for this price range. This machine costs £169 in the UK. You can get open box versions for about £120 or not, but new, this is about £170. Do you know what is less than £170? The Creality Ender 3. Routinely between £130 and £150. Sure, you will have to assemble the Z gantry, and you will have to attach a belt, and you may even have to screw on a power supply. But once you've done that, you've already got a more capable printer than you've got here. You've got a much bigger build volume than you've got here. If you're going to get this and then have to learn how to change firmware, adjust these bed clips, mod the firmware to get it to heat up that bit faster, to change that extruder because it will break. If you're going to do all that anyway, why don't you start with a more competent printer to begin with, one that will last you longer? Sure, I've gotten some beautiful prints out of this machine, but the reason there's so few prints here is because most of them have ended up in the bin, because they failed, because they layer shifted, because they didn't stick to the bed because the bed doesn't get hot enough. This machine is so inconsistent that there is just no way that I, in my good judgment, can recommend it to people. And that is upsetting for me, because I had the exact opposite reaction to the Maker Select Mini on my P120. I honestly don't know why this machine exists when that one does. Anyway, that is the end of this review. This started off happy and now quite sullen and somber review of the Monoprice Mini Delta. I'm pretty sure that Monoprice are going to be asking for this back at some point. I will be removing all my stickers. I will be leaving on the Wham Bam because, well, they need it more than I do, and I might even leave on the Bondtech extruder. I will be sad to see this go, mainly because I love Delta printers. But I don't think this particular printer, this iteration of the Mini Delta, deserves to exist in 2019 when there are much, much, much better options. Anyways, I am Dom. You can find me at mobile_Dom on all important social media. You can find the written review for this on www.mobiletechtalk.co.uk. And until next time, see ya.